Hello and welcome.
All right. I guess we're on. We're rolling. Okay, great. Welcome back to the show. We have Kerry Potts with us here today. Thank you so much for coming in. And like I said to every guest that's been on the show, it's been forever since we've seen you.
I know. It's actually been forever since I've
It has
seen
been.
you.
That's right. Yes.
But I follow you a lot on social media, so I feel like we touch base almost every day. But yeah, it's been a couple years at least.
Yeah, and I think the pandemic has sort of changed everything because, as we were saying before we started rolling, is that we would at least see each other at an event like imagineNATIVE or some sort of concert, or AMP of us throwing on something, right?
Sure,
but now it's like everyone kind of had to stay in touch through some sort of social media.
Yeah, and that's been a good. At first, it was a really good thing for me. I just felt like I was really able to connect with friends and get that sort of social stimulation. Now I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by social media at the moment. I've taken a social media break. I still use it to kind of browse events and promote a couple things that I like, but I just find it... it's too much. It's too much? There's too much conspiracy theorists and too much just nonsense in general? Well, I think the conspiracy theory stuff is one thing, and I get that in my personal life because I have a couple friends who are conspiracy theorists who I've had a real challenge deciding if I wanted them in my life. But that's another. The thing that really hit me was with the children in Kamloops when that came up. Right. And I watched as the Native and non-Native communities posted their responses. And I just felt like and then there's of course some racist remarks and things that you get, not directly on my Facebook page or anything, but and I just don't need this. And everybody was reliving trauma, and I feel like sometimes the Native community feels like they need to step up to relive these moments over and over. And I celebrate anybody who can share from their heart what they went through. And so I'm not condemning, but I feel like sometimes as well. And this is a comment that a friend of mine on Facebook had said that I'm repeating here, is that the most Indigenous thing you can do is move through and away from that trauma. And so when these events come up, it's like, it's not our responsibility to try to move the Karens of the world heart to get in line with where we are as a community. Right. And so I thought that was an interesting comment that he had made. And I was like, I just saw that happening over and over with friends and others. And I just needed to step away from it and really, any comments that people have that are racist or awful towards those comments just cemented that is not the space for this for me at this time.
Because I've seen some of even the media outlets. I think CBC has now closed the comment section on many of the articles that they publish.
Because of the racism.
That's right.
On Indigenous, comments on Indigenous articles.
Right.
And it's really awful. But I think social media is a very important forum for truth to be told and shared.
Right.
But I think it's also it lacks that space where you can have nuance.
That's right.
And I am all about nuance right now. I don't think anything's black and white. I think
Absolutely
we need
not.
to find these gray areas and understand that people shift and change their ideas all the time, and attacking people for one little thing they put it on Facebook or whatever. I just need to step away.
I agree 100%, because it seems like everyone's analysis of complex events is very rudimentary and binary at times.
Yeah.
And like you said, there is no... it's not always black and white.
Yeah.
But people want to make it that way. And there's this extreme polarization that we see now in politics, in everyday life, on social media. Absolutely. And has that always been there? It's just that now that technology has given everyone a megaphone to say what's in their heads?
Sure. And I think that, I'm trying to think, news media was always a little polarizing because you just get a limited number of people in media who have the clout, like CBC or CTV or these kind of bodies, these news media bodies, and they hire certain people and they get the platform to express their opinions, and so they can shut down somebody or or, attack an issue a certain way.
Right.
And so I celebrate the democratization of media through social media.
Sure.
And the democratization of information in that way. But at the same time, there just tends to be like a lack of critical thought, a lack of, I'm not saying anything new that people don't already know,
right.
like filling yourself full of information because of memes and people that you like. So therefore you follow what they say, and
right.
It just loses any complexity or sensitivity.
There's these echo chambers and everyone's living in their own information silo. But some of these people do, the Dunning-Kruger effect and such, they think they really are smarter than the experts and the specialists that are truly experts in their field. So how do we, what's sort of the solution there? Like, it feels like we failed somewhere as a society. I think it's probably multiple variables, like everything to do from probably peer pressure to, some poor education or bad parenting, maybe bad nutrition, maybe bad genetics. I'm sure it's a combination of all these things, right?
Sure. It's the age of the idiot, though. Like, it's just sort of people think that they're actually educated or informed about an issue, but they've just skimmed the surface of something.
That's right.
But then you have a platform to just share your idiot ideas.
That's right.
and then it's not vetted. It's not vetted through any sort of process before it gets published.
Exactly. And that's why I always get sort of peeved when someone says, well, did you do your research? Well, what do you mean by that? Right? Exactly. Yeah. Like, you might run a clinical trial and see like if the vaccines harm a certain amount of people.
Well, I've actually had students that have cited as a reference Google. And I'm like, okay, let me break down what Google is. It's a search engine.
Right.
This is not so people don't, like a lot of people who are digital natives, who are the ones born into this generation haven't used a library before.
No,
they haven't used these things. Like my students, sometimes after first semester, I'll say, like go to the library. Where is the library, miss? It's like, oh, okay, wow.
Yes, it feels like there's definitely missing that going to the library, reading books, because there's a certain, process in getting a book published rather than just writing a blog or putting up a YouTube video.
Absolutely. Well, you have a community of people who you've selected to work with, who want to work with you, and then if you're lucky to have a publisher, then you have them vetting facts and information, and then you have an audience of people who are going to read your book and give you critical feedback about it in different ways. So there's a lot of vetting that goes along before you produce something, produce a textbook or produce a book. So,
and you knew a lot about academics because you've had a career, we'll say, in academics.
Well, kind of. Yeah. Like sideways career in academics.
Okay,
but so I teach at Humber College, and I've been there for 10 years, and I'm full-time professor there, which has been wonderful. I've taught at Seneca, I've taught at OISE, I started as a TA in the Indigenous Studies program at U of T.
Okay.
And so I won a TA of the Year award there, and
that's great.
Made my ego grow and and go, hey, maybe I can actually do this.
Great.
And so I've also taught at George Brown College. So I've been focused at Humber on building Indigenous topics.
Right.
I teach other stuff that they throw at me as well, which I love. But yeah, so I started a course called Indigenous Perspectives on Music, Film, and Media.
Oh, okay.
So it centers Indigenous artists in different disciplines.
Okay.
And I try to ensure that all the readings and content is Indigenous-made content that I share with my students as well.
Right.
And it's not to say that there aren't some important insights that do get added through non-Indigenous writers, etc. But this is my focus and my center is on what their perspectives are in these fields.
Right. Because I was reading, you did your thesis on Indigenous music as an anti-colonial tool.
That's right. I just laughed there because it was so bad.
Oh, it was? Okay. Well, I haven't read it. Is it available online to read?
No.
Okay.
No, I've taken snippets of it here and there and done some little publications. Spirit Magazine picked up a little piece of it. And I've sort of built on that. And that work was based on... It wasn't so terrible. It just you look back on it and go, ooh, like anything.
Sure.
Yeah, so it was about Fela Kuti's statement was the music is a weapon of the future. Mm-hmm. And so I got really into Fela Kuti after going to an Ethiopian bar here in Toronto and on Bloor Street. I'm just forgetting the woman's name, and she's the most beautiful woman that you've ever seen. Anyways, and she would play Fela Kuti when we come in, and we'd just dance, and it was just awesome. And so I got into him and thinking about how his statement, music is a weapon of the future, in his own life of like fighting for this Indigenous space and fighting to be the way that he wants to be in the world, and using music as a conduit for that message, and fighting the authorities at the time. And so his album Expensive Shit, for example, I mean, I mean, it was interesting that the title for that album comes from the fact that he was constantly busted by the police. Oh, okay. So he is an amazing saxophone player, and so they'd break his fingers. Oh, jeez. His mother was thrown out a window by the police and died. And the Expensive Shit, and I know you'd like this, is that he was busted for weed. Oh, okay. And so he ate a whole bunch.
What's that?
And so he ate it, and then they were like going through, they had to wait until he took a shit.
Oh my goodness.
To go through it as the authorities to be able to find him. And so, yeah, anyways, it was just interesting, that story, but there was so many. I got to interview Leela Gilday, Lucy Idlout, some local Eagle Heart singers, Jimmy Dickett, Eagle Heart singers, Eddie Robinson, and many, and a couple other people. And it just sort of made me realize that, like, Indigenous musicians are doing amazing things to claim who they are, to connect to their communities, to be a voice for them, not just themselves, but also for the issues that they're passionate about. And so, and also hip hop is an interesting connection too. So, like,
hip hop's the new sort of rock and roll now.
Sure.
In terms of challenging the establishment and certain, ideas and values.
Absolutely. I absolutely love hip hop, and I'm really not an aficionado by any stretch of the imagination. But I remember listening to an interview with KRS-One, and he was saying that, back in the day when the Bronx were really, really bombed out, and they were building a highway through the Bronx, and so there was this quote unquote white flight that happened at that time. So this is in the early 70s, I believe, and so people were just separating off into gangs. Okay. And it was for protection. It was not safe to walk anywhere, so you had to be in a gang. And then maybe you'll remember that movie Warriors. I think they're doing a reboot of it. Yeah,
are they? Okay.
Warriors come out.
That's right. I remember that. That was great. That was a classic.
and so, but that was very of the moment. And so then all this Africa Bambaataa, who did like electro and fused like all sorts of different styles that were using like sampling sounds from Kraftwerk and doing all these different things. He was able to bring together the community in this really amazing way by winning a poetry contest. And he went over to I forget exactly the country in Africa that he went to, but he talked to one of the Zulu leaders, and that person said to him, one of the things that we did here is that we tribalized ourselves, and that made it so that we couldn't fight against the colonial forces. And so by separating ourselves, we hurt ourselves. Right. And so what you need to do is go back to your communities and say, end this gang warfare. And that's what he did. And he said, and he started throwing parties and saying, if you want to come to my parties, you put down the guns, you put down the weapons, and you battle on the dance floor. You battle with words, you battle with dance. And so people started doing that to be able to go. And KRS-One says that he's almost single-handedly responsible for eradicating gang violence for a couple decades in certain communities. And I was like, wow. I don't know if I think that statement might be a bit of an overstatement, but I think that is credit to what hip hop did in part, and the Native community. relates to that
Absolutely.
idea
Right.
of being isolated and segregated and ghettoized, and grew up, of course, in cities with other Black kids, and were listening to that music, and and so it's this really cool, awesome forum for Indigenous people now.
Right. Well, it's interesting because you mentioned how people were kind of turning to belong in a gang to feel sort of safe, or that was, I guess, their tribe or their community.
Sure.
And how we were just talking earlier, you kind of see it on social media too. People are kind of forming their own, their gangs, their own tribes on social media, and then, living in their information silos that way. So do you think there's a way to reach those people, like using something innovative like that? Like, let's have a dance off, or maybe not that.
Yeah. No, I like that idea, Mark. I just think about music as like a very important mechanism for bringing people together, period. And we see that with different collaborations that people have because I don't know, if you go back to the 1950s and 40s and in a much more, I'll just say more racist, because I think we're still in a racist era, but in a much more racist era in terms of divisions and where people will hang out, etc., is that you had musicians working together who were racially diverse, who were sharing their musical forms with each other and informing each other. Unfortunately, back in the day, only certain white musicians would get the status, and the Black musicians playing alongside with them, or the Indigenous musicians, would not have that status because of how the publicity machine works, etc., and racism in the Americas. But so it's interesting that collaboration, maybe through social media, that can happen. Do you know Snotty Nose Res Kids? Of course. I love them and what they're doing and their platform and the way that they use that. I don't know. I wanted to, I brought an album.
Let's take a look.
Okay, so this is a good example of a person who really took advantage of incredibly gifted
Phil Spector,
artists. So we can put this here.
Well, I also believe he's currently in jail. Is that correct? Prison,
I don't know. Did he die yet?
Oh, did he? I don't know. I haven't. I don't. I'm going to look that up just quickly.
Let's just see if he's dead.
Okay, let's just check. Murder. I believe it was his.
He murdered his girlfriend.
Oh, he passed. Sorry, he is dead.
I thought so. Not too
this
long
year,
ago.
January.
Yeah.
That's how much I follow this guy.
So this is it's an interesting discussion about can you like an artist who is a brilliant mind, but a terrible, horrid person?
That's right.
And unfortunately, a lot of artists aren't great people sometimes.
Yeah.
But this guy, I really like. I love the artists that he works with. There's a movie called, I think, I might have the title wrong. You might want to Google search it. 20 Feet from Stardom, or
That's right. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so that features a lot of the female artists that he was working with, and how he totally would take their music and then put it on another album and rebrand it with somebody else that he thought was a more appropriate face for that music.
I see. Right.
And so there's just amazing Who's on here? So the Crystals, Darlene Love is one of the ones who really got taken advantage of.
Right.
The Ronettes, of course, Phil Spector was married to Ronnie from the Ronettes. And there's just incredible artists who just got paid very, very poorly. But this man, everybody wanted to work with and thought he was this master genius behind it. And he did have genius. I'm not saying that, but he exploited everybody.
Right. He had, he had some challenges of his own, we'll say, personality-wise.
Tons.
But I think a lot of artists, though, have some sort of, it's something to do with the mechanism that makes them create the art. Some artists go too far into that realm of whatever it is.
Sure.
Because I was reading a biography once on John Lennon, and I was reading all the stuff he did back in the day, and a lot of it was terrible sort of stuff, but yet he's sort of known as being this person, a man of peace, and imagine, and all that kind of stuff, right? So you don't truly, I don't think you truly know the artist. Most people don't, right? But
that's very true.
But like you said, does that affect then the art later once you've learned about these terrible sort of things?
Well, I think for me, what it comes down to is that I don't want to put my money. I don't want to give my money to those people.
Right.
I want to give my money to people who I think are incredible. Okay, so I did bring like one album here.
Okay.
And it's just a single that was released a while ago by Teme-Augama and Buffy St. Marie called You Got to Run.
Oh, yes. Awesome.
And so this was part of the Polaris Music Prize lineup. And so I think that, when I first saw... Okay, so Buffy, I don't know that I need to give a lot of time to Buffy because everybody knows her or should. And if you don't, please get to know her. Absolutely incredible. I love everything that she represents, her politics, the way she is in the world, the way she is with individuals.
Right.
She's just this buoyant, gorgeous person. And Teme-Augama, I saw her, I wrote an album review for her when Sinna came out. So one of her early albums. And she had performed at the Aboriginal Music Awards downtown Toronto.
Right.
And I was sitting in the audience and she performed and I felt like my brain was melting.
Oh, okay.
Like it was in a good way. I was
right.
What is happening?
Yeah.
And so to see like these two women, and they both represent their community, they both represent love, they both represent like a real commitment to elevating people. And also they both have that ability to be prophets in a way. I heard this said the other night. I was doing an interview with Duke Redbird and Andrew Balfour, who's this amazing choral composer and and performer from out west. And so Andrew had said, artists are prophets.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, they take a lot of risks. They put their bodies, they put their souls, they put their spirits on the line for what they do. And you have to take care of yourself in that process when you do it. But I think in thinking of yourself as a prophet, sometimes artists also get lost in this idea that their audience tells them that they're so great, and then they just become like, ooh, like
they believe, they believe their own BS in some cases. That's right, right. That's right, yeah.
So don't believe the hype, right?
No, never do.
Sometimes try to keep yourself in check. But I think Tanya and Buffy are really in check with all of that. And
they totally seem down to earth.
They're amazing. Yeah. And another one that is too is Susan Aglukark.
Right.
So Susan is a really incredible woman. Is a really she helped to launch my career in the music sector a little further because she hired me as her assistant manager for a couple years while she released this album Blood Red Earth.
Right.
And so I had the privilege, I was really green, so Susan treated me with a great deal of kindness and patience. And but Susan is somebody who is committed to her community in a way that I haven't seen before up front. Like I got the opportunity with Susan. And so she runs a foundation now called the Arctic Rose Foundation. And so I've been volunteering some with her to get money in place to do these after-school art therapy programs for kids.
Right.
And so, and they're kind of supposed to provide a model and some funding for each school to do these and run it sort of in their own way. So they're not micromanaging the program for each community. And it's supposed to kind of proliferate in the community more naturally that way. But so I think it's in Arviat and I think it's where, I don't know if it's in Aglukark. And it's in several different communities up north right now. And it just gives kids a really safe space to go after school.
Right.
And they also do like a self-care program because they realize some of the barriers for kids staying in school are simple. Like, I haven't had a shower today and I can't get access to a shower, so I'm embarrassed I won't go to school. Or I haven't eaten. And housing crisis up in the north is so, you have so many people living that in close quarters that kids don't have these safe private spaces to go to that are just their own. Right. And that also has like a healthy role model from other students who are peer mentors and other artists and people who are grounded in Indigenous culture as well. Sort of giving them a sense of pride and a safe space to go to every day.
Great. So, and how long has the foundation been operating?
The Arctic Rose Foundation, I'm not exactly sure. She started it a long time ago, and it sort of shaped, like, was shaped by whatever community need that Susan felt was in her community.
Okay.
And so this particular program, I believe, has been running for about 3 years. And I think there were some early stages of it before that in one community. And so it's now expanding. I think they're in 5 communities now, and are trying to expand into like northern Manitoba and other regions as well. So it's not just across Inuit Nunangat, even though that is the target area right now. It's also trying to go into northern communities and give these opportunities through schools.
And do you see this maybe in the future, maybe a decade from now, this is somehow worked across Canada into different communities as well?
That would be amazing. And if anybody could please sponsor that.
Well, that's going to be my next question is how can people help the foundation?
Go to the Arctic Rose Foundation, get in touch with me.
All right.
Get in touch with Susan and donate. We need sponsors. We need more funders. And yeah, there is some funding behind it right now, but it's an ever-evolving, ever-expanding program.
Right, I see, okay. And is there other ways people contribute? Say, now with COVID, artists, they're not getting the CERB. Can they donate, like, musical equipment or...
Well, there you go. I mean, like somebody like yourself, Mark, for example.
I got too many guitars. I know I got to send some up.
Yeah, send some up. But, like, connecting them to artists who would be willing to come up and travel into the communities and do a week in the schools to teach kids about how to do this particular art form. And that's one of the parts of the program is that we bring in visiting artists who are healthy people, who are people, we're working with kids here, and some of these kids have a lot of trauma as well. And
what's the average age of the participants?
So it's high school age kids.
High school, okay.
Yeah. So this is we always want to connect with good people and good artists and community people in those communities and school people in those communities educators who are wanting to take on this in their own communities and pick up that work.
Well, that's great. That's awesome. And then when we kind of did that, a video conference call a while back before we got you on the show. And you were telling me about some other thing you're working on at Humber, Humber Story Lab, Surviving Hate as well.
Oh, yeah. So this is I'm really, really privileged to be part of this particular project. And people can find it on the Story Lab website, or they Google search Surviving Hate. And Martha Troyan is the mastermind behind this, and she's an amazing journalist she's based in Winnipeg, and she's working with the National Observer. And so the National Observer and Humber College's journalism school are partnering to try to fill the statistics and data about hate crimes. Right. So if you've experienced sexual harassment, if you've experienced racism, people don't often go all the way to report it as a hate crime. And so what this project is doing is sending out a survey nationally to allow people to report those crimes confidentially. And then if they want to do something more publicly, that journalists will then pick up those stories and tell some of that stories. And there's other layers to it, like researching these incidents of hate crime over the past 10 years that are reported through social media, through newspapers, through, I guess there's no newspapers anymore. There's a few, but through news media, and doing FOIs with freedom of information requests to police, et cetera, in order to really piece together what the clear picture is. And we're really looking at Indigenous, hate crimes that have been perpetuated.
So what constitutes or defines a hate crime in terms of the law for police to get involved?
Oh, well, I mean, there's a clear definition on our website, and maybe I could refer you to that. Okay. But a lot of the times I think that people read that, because the way that the language is to me, I reported a guy, and I'm blanking on his name right now. I think I tried to purposely get it out of my mind. Kevin something, and he's this raging racist out in Calgary. Oh, okay. And he did a coffee. He was like coffee beans, and he sells them as like, there's liberal tiers, and there's also like drunk Indian or something like that.
Right.
And it's really hateful. His marketing, and he's really unapologetic, like anti-masker, just like angry white man kind of politics, which terrifies me. Like it's a real white supremacist agenda. And so I had, within the definition of what the hate crimes are, I was like, this guy is fitting that bill for me. So I reported him to the Calgary police, and nothing's been followed up with at all. There's nothing. And I'm sure this guy has like a litany of reports against, or I'd hope anyways.
Right.
But so you can see that there's like room for interpretation is what I'm trying to say in terms of what the definition is. And, but yeah. I can pull up the definition if that's something that otherwise people can look at Storylab.
I can post it in the links.
Sure.
I see the description.
Yeah.
Why surviving hate? I need new glasses too.
That's
I need a different prescription. It's like it's hard.
That's okay.
We'll find it though, and we'll post the link online.
Yeah, that would be great. And if people want to defer to the survey as well and take a look at it, it can be triggering for people as well. So we do provide a list of resources, and we're really trying to do this through a process that's responsible to the Indigenous community, and that this data becomes available so that organizations like the AFN, but like local communities, can use to their advantage to say, like, this is an issue within our community. Like, let's look at this, and how do we address this further in a good way.
Now, does law enforcement, the police, do they have any stats of their own? And is this information that you might be collaborating with them in the future to get them a better understanding of what the issue is?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've spoken to different people in the RCMP, and we've spoken to, I know that individual journalists who are working on this, who are our research assistants, are gathering that information with Freedom of Information requests. And it's sort of interesting because I did talk to, I'm just going to not say people's names, but did talk to one incredibly talented and brilliant woman who in the RCMP who just said, you have to be careful how you frame your approach, because the RCMP are going to feel, or individuals might feel, attacked by these requests. Right. And that was an interesting thing for me, because it's like, it's important it's the law, they have to disclose it, first of all. But is like, how do we... I don't know. It was just an interesting thing to think that, like, I had to treat a police officer really delicately with, like, how I request something that is legally my right to have.
Yes.
But anyways, I think that there is a lot of, I mean, we know we're in the current climate of defund the police, right?
That's right.
And, I am the daughter of a retired police officer as well. So, but I'm not pro-police and I'm not anti-police. Okay? Sure. I want to make that clear.
Right.
But so... how we have conversations with the people we want to get information from, we need to think about how to respect that individual that we're working with no matter what. But we have to be able to be really, remember what our legal rights are as researchers, as journalists as well. Anyways, there is quite a bit more I can say about that, but I think I'll pause it.
Okay.
Pause it there.
And a lot of people have participated in the story? Or
we
the
need more people filling out the surveys.
Okay.
We need to find, it has been shared through the Assembly of First Nations Health Division, and we're trying to push it out through social media channels. Okay. And I'm trying to push Martha to do some interviews about it and to get more information out there to the community, because we'd like to focus on Indigenous impacts, but other people are working on other impacts that people have. So it can be anybody to fill out these surveys. Okay. So we would like to have at least 500 to 1,000 surveys completed.
And what number are you at now, just out of curiosity?
I actually am not sure, because I've been on vacation the past couple months, and so past month and a half. But I think we were somewhere around 100, and so we need to have more. We need to have more in order to. And
how long is the survey? Because I know when someone sends me a survey, if it's more than like 15 minutes, like, forget it.
It depends on what your story is,
sure,
right?
True,
but the story,
okay.
but the survey isn't particularly long. And if you want a follow-up interview, then you can share your information with us, and we'll follow up with you directly to do those interviews.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah,
great. Well, I'll post the links later.
That would be awesome. Really appreciate
and everyone
that.
can kind of follow up, as well as for the Arctic Rose Foundation.
Yeah, that would be great.
And you have a few more other things here.
Oh yeah. Okay, I was trying to think. Okay, so I did bring a Patti Smith.
Awesome, Patti Smith.
Because Patti Smith, to me, I've seen her a dozen times.
Oh, great.
And every time I see her, she makes me cry.
Oh.
And so I absolutely love Patti Smith, and I've read whatever I can from her. And I had this postcard on my fridge, and little 4.5-year-old who I'm a parental figure to says, "Carrie, is that you?" So my hair was particularly messy that day. She said that. But yeah, I have a real affinity for her. I think she's just a really innovative woman. I think she's a poet, a dreamer, a prophet, and I just think she lives her life in a way that is a true artist's lifestyle.
Right, absolutely.
You know, somebody who has let themselves submit to that way of life.
Right.
Regardless of money in her early days.
Sure.
And regardless of anything. So I love her as an icon, and I have a tattoo of hers as awesome. Well that says, "In art and dream may you proceed with abandon, in life may you proceed with balance and stealth." And she wrote that as a memorial to her husband who had died, who is part of the MC5, and also her former boyfriend and longtime friend Robert Mapplethorpe, who is a photographer, and so. And I had lost a friend to AIDS, and that was around 2011. And that was a really difficult time for me. And I wanted to get a memorial tattoo for her. And it just didn't come about in her lifetime. And she became too frail for us to get a tattoo together. So when she passed, I thought this was a good thing. And it was a good reminder to self about like how you keep in balance.
Right.
And because I'm an art supporter. So, you know, we don't always live life the most, conventional ways. You know, I got off track at different points in my life.
Okay.
And I think at that particular time I was really struggling to try and find, my balance.
Right.
My ability to be calm and to feel good about myself that didn't involve like partying or being out in the world, but just that I could be calm and okay with who I am.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you're I was working at imagineNATIVE at that time, and it was just like this frantic industry.
Right.
And I love imagineNATIVE. I love everything that they do. And
absolutely.
But my own energy there was completely depleted by the time that my friend died. And so that was a good time. I had to move on from that industry, but people working in these industries like yourself, like you have to find something that grinds.
It's tough. I'm only 25, by the way. No, it is hard.
Yeah. How do you do it, Mark?
I have no idea. I think, because you're always... for artists, I think you're always kind of, not always, but when you're doing your art, whatever it is, if you're performing, you're always in that sort of vulnerable state as well.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is stressful in its own right as well. I try not to think about it. I'm at that age now where I'm kind of comfortable with, who I am and what I do. And if you don't like it, well, screw you.
I like that. That's what I like about you. And that's what I like when I follow you on Facebook. You'll say things and that are just like, this is who I am.
I know. That's right.
Like, accept me and love it.
That's right. It. But I try to be respectful as well.
Of course.
And I'm all about civil discourse. And like you said earlier, life is about nuance. We should be talking more about issues and topics, kind of like how we are now, rather than just texting and kind of posting some sort of comment on Facebook or on Twitter. You're only limited to how many characters? I'm hardly on Twitter. It's like something. Yeah. So those aren't real conversations. Yeah. And emojis, those aren't real conversations.
No. I just saw a movie actually at TIFF. And there's another... Okay, before I get into that movie, I got to say, you have to see Night Raiders.
Oh, yes. I've been reading a lot of great stuff about it. Right.
And go see it. Dana Sculé is one of the most profoundly beautiful minds that I've ever had the privilege of being around. And I say that with every ounce of sincerity I could possibly say. Right. I absolutely love that woman. And I worked with her at imagineNATIVE for 5 years. She was the artistic director at the time. And she showed me so much about how to bring together community and artists so that they generate together, so that they come together in this form and connect people to industry. And her own mind as a filmmaker, I just love her. And her and her husband, Tony, are an incredible duo as well. He's a screenwriter. And so, you have to see her film.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah. And she's invited to come on the show anytime when she's available.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've lost my train of thought a little bit before. We were talking about movies. Oh, yes. Toronto International Film Festival just wrapped up here.
Right.
And so I watched this movie called Arthur Rimbaud. It's like Arthur Rimbaud, who is the poet, but it's spelled like Arthur Rambo.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Rambo.
Okay.
Like Sylvester Stallone.
Right.
So, and it's all about this young writer. He's I think he was Albanian. Oh no, he's Algerian. Excuse me.
Okay.
Memory. Algerian, and he is really celebrated for being this incredible voice for youth in Paris, and people are like, I relate to your story so much as this immigrant, and they're celebrating him, and it starts out with a big party, and then he just starts getting totally taken down by social media because he created this alter ego called Arthur Rambo, and that he was using to kind of vet ideas and to push the envelope and be politically incorrect.
That's
and to just see if people would respond. And people were loving him and just feeding into him. And then it found out that he was doing anti-Jewish posts, a lot of anti-Semitic posts,
right.
And then it just got totally shut down. And so it was a really interesting story about how social media and what's sort of allowed and then what gets shut down.
It is interesting because whenever I'm on Twitter or social media, I mean, it seems like it's a different world. That's a different demographic of people that I don't necessarily meet.
Yeah.
And then you have, the cancel culture and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's good when they get it right, but when they get it wrong, there's no accountability.
Sure.
With the online sort of mob.
Sure. Yeah. Right. And everybody just kind of does a pile-on. I mean, we've seen it with different people in our own community get piled on, or people who are not considered part of our community but are taking up a lot of space in the community.
Right.
And so it gets away from a human element, and when you actually know those people, and I've had the opportunity to know a couple of people that got taken down through social media, and I just feel like it's not that I disagree with certain elements of why people were challenged. It's that I disagree with the approach that we need to completely annihilate that person.
Right.
And their life is just destroyed at that moment.
That's right.
It's just like there's no real dialogue because there's not, like, once the pylon begins, it's just there.
That's right.
And then if you don't agree with the pylon, then you are part of the problem.
There's no due process. That person could be innocent, or it could be an innocent mistake, or something. Right.
Sure. There's a lot more layers to it. So it's just like I just feel like there needs to be more kindness, and that forum does not necessarily, it's not, kindness is not as celebrated as self-righteousness.
That's right, because I think there's a disconnect. It's almost like, I forget the name of the syndrome, but when people get in their cars, they suddenly become someone else.
Oh yeah,
they usually become their worst, the person that they can be, right? Because there's a disconnect. You're not when you bump into someone on the sidewalk, it's like, oh, sorry. There's a human sort of connection, but as soon as you're in a vehicle or you're behind a computer, there's that disconnect, and now you're something else.
You're a machine.
You're a machine. That's right.
Well, this is the depersonalization of human connection that's happening, and we're just submitting to it over and over and over again.
Right.
And so I really want to move away from that in terms of how I am with people, and before I go and attack somebody, I want to make sure that they know, like, I might disagree with them online and be like, you're an idiot. But like, I really think that it's really important to allow that human connection.
Absolutely. And this is why we kind of do the podcast show in this sort of format.
Yeah.
Because I could do the Zoom thing as well, but we kind of want to have the people here, and it's more face-to-face, and I think it's a better overall conversation.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark, it's way nicer to see you in person.
It's good to see you. And speaking of that, we're coming up to the end of the show. We got another maybe 5 minutes left. Is there any final things you want to...
I'm just trying to see. I brought a few things. Okay, so this is... Okay, so this is a great artist who I know.
Okay, great.
Najwan, I really love you.
Thank you.
Everything that you do. Everybody should run out and buy this album. It's fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
Like, sincerely.
Thank you so much.
And this was just a ridiculous album that I picked up the other day because sometimes you just have to buy stuff because of how it looks. And I like that he's sort of run into Christmas lights.
Oh, that's awesome. And we got to remember that for a promo shoot. We'll steal that idea.
Just get some Christmas lights. But it's so 70s, and I'm kind of rocking 70s hair. He did Montego Bay. Oh,
yeah, of course. That's right.
But the rest of the album's really fun too. But I guess what did I want to really show you? I want to show you. I guess Floyd Red Crow Westerman would be a good.
Oh yeah, great, yeah.
So I talked to Duke Redbird the other day, and you can see that talk on Museum's Facebook page. Museum's a Toronto-based museum, and does some great stuff. And so Duke Redbird and Andrew Balfour were talking, and Duke used to tour with Floyd Red Crow Westerman. So Duke is a poet, for those of you who don't know him. And check out his website, Duke Redbird's website. But Floyd Red Crow Westerman, a lot of people would know from the Lakota.
That's right. Exactly.
And, and some people that rubbed the wrong way. But once I started to understand who he was, he's an actor. He was a hardcore activist.
Yes. Yeah.
He wrote this amazing song, and it was based on Vine Deloria Jr.'s Custer Died for Your Sins. Right. And so he sings the song, Custer died for your sins, Custer died for your sins, a new world can begin. I think that's how it goes. Custer died. I should not sing.
Well, now we got to pay the royalty to the publisher. So.
Oh, do we? No. And then there's another one that's like, Here Come the Anthros.
Right, okay.
And so, anthropologists would always come in.
And what year was this album come out? I must say on it. Like,
it's the 60s, probably.
Right.
1969.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
And so, yeah, I love him. Buffy was around that same time, and so many others that were really the pioneers, were really the ones on the ground first, the avant-garde, if you will, of Indigenous music. And they were having to do this without a community around them. And I remember hearing Bear Witness talk about that, who's in Hallucination, and he said Buffy St. Marie turned to him at the Junos and said, "It's so good to see you here, because I was the only one for so long." Right. And you could hear the emotion in Bear's voice when he was retelling that story. Right. And I'm like, it's so beautiful now. And I've been so lucky to be part of the Indigenous arts community, and just the Indigenous community here in Toronto, period, and broader. It's so beautiful because there's so much happening, and we finally have a community and an industry and people who are plugged into broadcasters and have equipment like you do, and have these opportunities to create amazing things and really celebrate the excellence and the boundless talent that is in the Indigenous community. And that is, to me, like just such a gift to be part of that. It's amazing. And I think that's a perfect way to end the show. Thank you again so much for being on the show. Yeah, and we'll have to have more, I guess, frequent visits at some point, and not wait to years. Anytime. Yeah, okay, great. Thank you so much for being on the show. Hey, miigwech. Thanks again. Miigwech. Thank you.